A betrayed woman is forced by her fiancé's family to marry him, but what she does afterward leaves everyone shocked. Dear viewers, welcome to our channel. Subscribe to receive more stories every day. Come on, it's not a big deal. What's your problem? Ethan looked at Sophia with guilt in his eyes. It was just once. I swear it won't happen again. Sophia turned her face away, emotionless, unable to respond. Forgiveness was impossible. She and Ethan had been together for a year, and they were seen by everyone as the perfect couple. Beautiful, romantic, and inseparable from the moment they met. Only a week into their relationship, Ethan had already moved in with her. Sophia lived in a modest apartment above the family bakery, which she had inherited after her parents passed away suddenly in a car accident 2 years earlier. The bakery had been in the family for generations, nestled in a quaint neighborhood in Paris. It was small but well-loved by the locals, and her parents had worked tirelessly to keep it afloat. Their sudden death had left Sophia with a heavy burden, but also with a bittersweet gift: the apartment and the bakery itself. The timing couldn't have been better, as she had just graduated high school and was saving up for university. Living in the dorms was out of the question, as the bakery's income barely covered her needs. The apartment had become her sanctuary. Ethan had met her at the university they both attended. He was studying business, and though they were both students, their circumstances were quite different. While Sophia's parents had left her the bakery, Ethan came from a well-off family. His parents ran a small import-export business, and though they weren't millionaires, they lived comfortably. Ethan was used to a certain lifestyle, and while his family wasn't exactly thrilled about him moving in with Sophia so quickly, they had grown to accept it. At least that's what Sophia thought. They had lived together for a year when Ethan proposed. It had been a quiet proposal, one night after dinner in the small apartment. There had been no grand gestures, no romantic speeches, but Sophia had accepted, happy with the idea of starting a family with him. They hadn't planned on a big wedding. Sophia was pragmatic, and they both agreed that a small ceremony with close friends and family would be best, given their limited finances. However, things changed after Ethan's parents got involved. His mother, in particular, insisted that they have a grand wedding. "We can't just have a simple ceremony," she said. "Our family has expectations. We'll invite everyone, rent a vineyard for the ceremony, hire a photographer, and make sure it's a wedding to remember." "We don't have the money for that," Sophia had said quietly, but her concerns were brushed aside. "Don't worry about the money," Ethan's mother had replied confidently. "Our relatives will give generous gifts. The cost will be covered." Sophia's stomach had churned at the thought. Her parents' savings were dwindling, and though the bakery provided a steady income, it wasn't enough to finance a lavish wedding. But with Ethan's family pushing, she felt trapped. She had hoped for a simple affair, something meaningful but manageable. Instead, she found herself swept up in the whirlwind of extravagant preparations, every decision feeling further from what she wanted. Determined to save wherever she could, Sophia decided to handle the small details herself. She arranged for a friend to make her wedding dress at a discount, and she planned to do her own hair and makeup. Between planning the wedding, attending university, and running the bakery, Sophia barely had a moment to herself. Her relationship with Ethan began to feel strained. He had grown distant, often coming home late from his part-time job. She dismissed her concerns, thinking he was stressed from the upcoming wedding, just as she was. A few days before the wedding, Sophia's last 2 classes at the university were canceled, giving her a rare free afternoon. She decided to visit her friend to try on her dress, and then head home early to surprise Ethan with a romantic dinner. She stopped by the bakery on her way back, picking up fresh ingredients and imagining how the evening would play out. As she stepped into the apartment, however, something felt off. The living room was a mess, with clothes thrown haphazardly on the floor. Her heart began to pound in her chest as she heard low voices coming from the bedroom. With a sinking feeling, she walked slowly towards the door, praying she was wrong. She opened the door to find Ethan in bed with a woman she recognized from his job. They didn't even notice her at first. When they finally did, they didn't stop. They just looked at her, then each other, and kept going. Numb, Sophia backed out of the room and into the living room. Her mind was blank, unable to process what she had just seen. A few minutes later, Ethan stumbled out of the bedroom, hastily pulling on his clothes. His face was flushed, his eyes wide with panic. Sophia, wait. It's not what you think. How do you know what I'm thinking? Sophia's voice was cold, distant. Get out. Sophia, let's talk about this. Get out, she shouted louder this time. Ethan froze, his face a mixture of guilt and frustration. Fine, I'll go, but you'll regret this. Sophia stared at him, her voice shaking with anger. I already regret everything. Ethan left without another word, and Sophia spent the rest of the night in a daze, unable to sleep. She cried until the early hours of the morning, her chest aching with betrayal and heartbreak. When the sun rose, she dragged herself to class, trying to carry on as if nothing had happened. But as she walked out of her lecture, there was Ethan, waiting for her. Sweetheart, please, can we talk? Sophia's stomach churned at the sight of him, but she didn't have the strength to fight. She allowed him to walk beside her as they made their way to a nearby cafe. You've been so busy with the wedding, the bakery, everything, Ethan said, his voice low and apologetic. I didn't mean for it to happen. I've just been feeling neglected, I guess. But it won't happen again, I swear. I love you, Sophia. I don't need anyone else. Sophia's hands trembled as she held her coffee cup. She didn't believe a word he said. The image of him in bed with that woman was burned into her mind. No amount of apologies would erase that. I'm sorry, she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. But I can't do this. Ethan's expression hardened. Do you really want to throw everything away? Think about the wedding. Think about the bakery. You can't afford to cancel now. Everything's paid for. You're going to ruin everything. Sophia stared at him, the weight of his words sinking in. He was right. The wedding was days away, and they had already spent so much money. She had dipped into her parents' savings to cover the costs, and there was no way she could get it back. The bakery was struggling as it was, and canceling the wedding would only make things worse. In the end, she didn't cancel. The wedding went ahead as planned, but Sophia felt like she was moving through it in a fog. She forced herself to smile, to act happy, but inside she was numb. Ethan, on the other hand, seemed to be having the time of his life. He laughed and danced with his friends and family, while Sophia could barely keep herself together. When they finally returned home that night, Sophia made up the couch in the living room, determined to keep her distance from Ethan. She was about to lie down when the doorbell rang. Ethan's parents stood on the doorstep, their faces serious. We need to talk about the money, his mother said. Sophia blinked in confusion. What money? The wedding gifts, Ethan's mother replied. Our family gave you a lot of money, and we expect it back. We have some debts to pay off. Sophia's heart sank. She had thought the money from the wedding would help them start their new life together. But apparently, Ethan's parents had other plans. Ethan appeared behind his mother, holding a thick envelope. I've already got it all here, he said, handing the money to his parents without a second thought. Sophia could barely contain her disbelief. But what about my parents' savings? I used that to help pay for the wedding. Ethan's mother gave her a cold, dismissive look. Most of the money came from our side of the family. What could your parents have possibly contributed? They left, laughing together as if nothing had happened, leaving Sophia standing in the doorway, her world crumbling around her. After they were gone, Ethan turned to her. Come on, don't make this harder than it has to be. You're my wife now. Just do what's expected of you, and we'll be fine. Sophia felt sick to her stomach. She glared at him, her voice shaking with barely controlled rage. Come near me, Ethan, and I'll make you regret it. Ethan, too drunk to argue, staggered off to bed. Sophia stayed up on the couch, her mind racing as she tried to figure out what to do next. The next day, she wandered the streets of Paris, feeling lost and alone. Eventually, she found herself sitting on a park bench, staring blankly at the ground. She had no idea how long she had been there when a voice interrupted her thoughts. Excuse me, are you all right? Sophia looked up to see a young man standing in front of her, concern etched on his face. I don't mean to intrude, he said, but you look like you needed someone to talk to. For reasons she couldn't explain, Sophia found herself telling him everything. She told him about the wedding, about Ethan's betrayal, and about how trapped she felt. The man, who introduced himself as Lucas, listened quietly, offering her a kind smile as she poured her heart out. By the time she finished speaking, Sophia felt lighter, as if a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. Lucas handed her his business card before he left. "If you ever need anything," he said, "even just someone to talk to, don't hesitate to call." Sophia thanked him and tucked the card into her pocket, unsure if she would ever actually use it. Back at the apartment, Ethan's mother was waiting for her. "It's been a week since the wedding," she said, her voice sharp. "Why haven't you registered Ethan in the apartment yet?" Sophia clenched her fists, feeling the anger rise in her chest. "Why should I?" she demanded. "So, he can bring more women here? You've already taken all the wedding money, and now you want my apartment too?" Ethan's mother's face twisted in anger. "You're nothing without this apartment," she spat. "If it weren't for your parents' inheritance, you'd have nothing." Sophia glared at her. "This apartment is mine, and I'm not registering Ethan here. You can't make me." Later that night, Ethan came home, fuming. "I'm your husband," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "I have a right to live here." Sophia didn't flinch. "We'll see about that," she said, pulling Lucas's business card from her pocket. With Lucas's help, Sophia filed for divorce. Ethan, realizing he had no legal standing, was forced to move out of the apartment. Sophia changed the locks, and for the first time in months, she felt at peace. 6 months later, Sophia had rebuilt her life. The bakery was thriving again, and she had graduated from university. She and Lucas had kept in touch, and their relationship had grown into something more than friendship, though she wasn't ready to marry again just yet. Sophia had learned to trust herself again. She had found her strength, and she knew now that she didn't need anyone else to define her. Dear viewers, thank you for watching. If you like this story, please subscribe to our channel to receive more stories every day. Share with us what you think of this story.